Welcome back to Superly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
It's good to be back.
Today's critique is centered on key advanced idioms, and they're drawn directly from a recent SpeakDuo lesson. That's number 1186. Dating is one of the hardest things you will ever do. And as always, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls. It's a great way to build confidence.
Yeah, and today, we're really going to be drilling down on what makes these phrases advanced.
Right.
Because for any high-level English user, relying on a simple word like suddenly, when a great idiom exists, it's just a missed opportunity.
A big one.
So we need to make sure learners can apply these high-impact terms correctly, in any context. Professional, personal, you name it.
Okay, let's get straight into the linguistic deep dive.
Let's do it.
We'll start with our first phrase. We're focusing on understanding the true depth of surprise conveyed by the phrase out of the blue.
Ah, a classic.
It is. And a common mistake we see is just treating it as a direct synonym for suddenly or unexpectedly.
Right.
And while it has that meaning, simple substitution completely misses the point.
Absolutely. The weakness of just swapping the words is you lose all the figurative color. And, I think more importantly, the emotional weight of the idiom.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the blue always implies that something happened without any prior sign. No indication, no warning. It generates this genuine surprise because it seemed impossible just moments before.
It's an improbable shock, not just a surprise.
Exactly.
So, to make this concrete, let's contrast two sentences. You could say, I saw him suddenly walking down the street.
Just a quick observation.
Right. But if you say, I hadn't seen him in years, and then he called me out of the blue, well, that establishes a narrative and highlights the sheer improbability of it.
And I'd even push that definition a bit further. The real power of out of the blue is in the total disruption of what you expect.
Okay.
So, think about an IELTS speaking response. You could say, the most surprising moment of my career happened entirely out of the blue when a former colleague who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years called to offer me a senior role.
That definitely works.
A manager scheduling a meeting suddenly isn't out of the blue. That's just bad planning. But the job offer, that is a genuine shock.
That's a great distinction. Okay, speaking of unexpected things, let's pivot to commitment, specifically distinguishing spoken for from merely being unavailable.
Another tricky one.
Learners often fall into a couple of traps here. They might use it for temporary unavailability, like saying a server is spoken for when they're just on break. Or they limit it only to dating contexts.
The nuance here is so important because it's about a definitive commitment. Spoken for means a claim. A formal verbal commitment has been made.
So it's reserved.
Permanently reserved in that context. It suggests a deal has been struck, not just a passing moment.
Okay, so let's contrast the simple usage. I'm sorry, the manager is unavailable right now.
Which is temporary.
Right, with a definitive reservation. If you were inquiring about the new high-end penthouse, I'm afraid it is officially spoken for. A buyer placed a formal reservation last week.
That buyer's claim is absolute, and this applies just as well in a social context, like the original lesson suggested.
In dating?
Exactly. Saying someone is spoken for is much more definitive and frankly more polite than just saying they're unavailable. It respects the commitment.
And professionally?
Well, if a key resource or a project component is spoken for, that signals the option is completely closed. You have to pivot your strategy.
Okay, let's talk about professional friction. We need to focus on accurately applying the metaphor of stepping on someone's toes.
Ah, yes, the territorial offense.
The error here is generalizing it. People use it when they just mean irritating someone or disagreeing with a colleague.
But it's so much more specific than that.
It demands a higher standard. It's about interfering directly in their area of responsibility or breaking, unwritten rules of operation.
So the suggestion is to really emphasize that violation of professional boundaries. It's not just a minor annoyance.
No.
The offense comes from encroaching on another person's assigned turf, their tasks, their authority. It's fundamentally about a lack of respect for the workflow.
So let's contrast that. Simple friction would be, he irritated me by constantly interrupting the presentation.
Okay.
But a clear boundary violation is, We must be cautious not to step on the marketing team's toes by designing the graphics ourselves without their prior consent.
That acknowledges their jurisdiction. I love the imagery of that one. It's such a powerful visual of clumsy interference.
It really is.
And, the positive application is key here, too. If you're new to a company, you could ask, I want to assist with the report, but I don't want to step on your toes.
Right.
It immediately shows cultural intelligence and respect for roles.
Moving on to an issue of ethical leadership, we're highlighting the moral and leadership implications inherent in the idiom to practice what one preaches.
This one carries a lot of weight.
It does, but learners sometimes apply it too generally, to anyone who doesn't follow their own simple advice. But the word preaches really elevates the tone, suggesting a person in a position of authority where their behavior is expected to be consistent.
We really need to capture the severity of the hypocrisy involved. This phrase is most impactful when you're criticizing a leader, an authority figure, a public advocate,
Right.
whose core actions just fundamentally contradict their stated values. It's a serious critique of integrity.
Not just a minor slip-up.
Not at all.
So the source example is simple. He tells us to be healthy, but he smokes. He doesn't practice what he preaches. But we can elevate this.
To a corporate context.
Exactly. For instance, the CEO advocates for environmental sustainability in every press release, yet he frequently uses a private jet. He is clearly not practicing what he preaches.
Now that has real bite. The context of the private jet against the sustainability message makes the critique so much stronger.
Okay, that brings us to emotional interventions. We need to address the difference between to cheer someone up and to comfort.
These get mixed up all the time.
They do. The weakness is just conflating these two very distinct emotional actions.
Comforting is often about validation, whereas cheering up is about action.
The distinction is vital. Comforting acknowledges and validates the sadness that's already there. You offer support, a shoulder to lean on. Cheering someone up, on the other hand, has a fundamental active objective: to intentionally shift their emotional state toward a happier outlook.
The goal is mood change.
Precisely.
The source provides a great example of that intentional action. I bought her flowers to cheer her up after she failed the exam. It's a deliberate intervention. And you could use that in a professional context, too. When the team is down after a setback, I usually order lunch and play some upbeat music to try to cheer everyone up.
Right, because dwelling on the problem can wait.
Exactly. Get a positive perspective first.
Our sixth critique focuses on absolute avoidance, recognizing the strong, distancing nature of the phrase, to want no part of something.
This is a powerful one.
It's much stronger than just saying, I don't like it or I refuse. It conveys a desire for total, absolute separation.
Yeah, often driven by a moral aversion or just a recognition that a situation is toxic or messy.
So the suggestion is to reserve this for when you want to distance yourself entirely from a situation because it's complicated or dangerous or morally dubious.
The phrase, I refuse to be involved, is just weaker.
It is.
This idiom is more emphatic. It's emotionally charged. It implies this visceral need to just step away.
The source example is very personal. When they started arguing, I wanted no part of it, so I left.
And you can apply this to governance. After seeing the legal liabilities, the manager stated they want no part of the new proposal and wish to distance themselves entirely from it.
Okay, now for a financial constraint. Defining the difference between operating on a budget and simply being frugal.
Ah, a subtle but important one.
The material correctly notes that on a budget means having a limited amount of money. But the weakness is confusing this necessary constraint with general frugality.
Which is more of a personality trait.
Exactly, a long-term habit.
That is a key distinction. Frugality is a lifestyle choice. You choose to be careful with money, even if you have plenty. Being on a budget implies a specific, necessary financial limit, or a period of saving where spending must be tightly controlled because capital is finite. The constraint is the driver.
The source example illustrates this well. I can't go to expensive restaurants right now because I am on a budget.
The difference is the necessity.
Right.
In an investment context, you see this. The firm is operating strictly on a budget this quarter and must select highly cost-effective resources due to a specific limit on available capital.
They're forced by the constraint.
Precisely. If they weren't on a budget, they might choose a riskier, more speculative venture.
Finally, let's look at expanding the scope of a phrase, using to see what a place has to offer, not just for tourism, but for professional exploration.
This is a great one.
The primary weakness is that learners limit this phrase to sightseeing or casual travel.
Which is its typical use, but it's so much more versatile.
So what's the suggestion?
We suggest using it to imply an intention to discover and evaluate potential business opportunities, market gaps, local talent, strategic resources, not just tourist attractions.
A strategic evaluation for potential value?
That's it.
So you can contrast the travel example, we walked around the city center to see what London has to offer, with a professional application. The entrepreneur is visiting this city to see what it has to offer in terms of discovering new supply chain opportunities.
It turns a vacation into a scouting mission.
Exactly. And that shift in tone is what advanced learners need to grasp.
Fantastic.
That wraps up our detailed critique. Now, let's transition into a quick quiz to test your recall and see if those subtle distinctions stuck.
Okay, be decisive and remember the nuances we just covered.
Question 1. Which of the following professional scenarios best illustrates a situation occurring out of the blue? Option A. A client cancels a long-standing contract after 3 months of documented dissatisfaction. Option B. A former colleague calls to offer you a senior role when you haven't spoken in 5 years. Or Option C. A manager schedules a performance review 2 weeks in advance as per company policy. Feel free to pause here if you need to think about the answer.
All right, the correct answer is definitely option B.
Why is that?
Well, the client cancellation in A was predictable, and the review in C was scheduled. Option B, the call from a long-lost colleague, is the only one that happened without any prior warning. It's truly out of the blue.
Perfect. Question 2. In a high-end real estate negotiation, if a specific penthouse is described as spoken for, what does it imply? Option A. The property has been legally condemned by the city. Option B. The owner has decided to increase the asking price. Or Option C. A different buyer has already placed a formal reservation or claim on the residence. Go ahead and pause if you need a moment.
The correct answer is option C. If a resource is spoken for, someone else has already claimed it. It signals that definitive commitment we talked about.
Right. It's not just temporarily unavailable.
Exactly.
Question 3. Which action in a collaborative workspace is most likely to be perceived as stepping on someone's toes? Is it Option A, requesting a formal meeting to discuss shared resources? Option B, completing a colleague's primary task without their consent? Or Option C, providing constructive feedback during a scheduled review? Feel free to pause and think it over.
The answer here is option B. This is the definition of a territorial offense. Completing their primary task without authorization interferes directly in their area of responsibility. You are, quite literally, stepping on someone's toes.
Got it. Question 4. Which leader is most clearly failing to practice what they preach regarding corporate transparency? Option A, an executive who holds weekly open forum meetings but keeps salary data private. Option B, a CEO who advocates for environmental sustainability while frequently using a private jet. Or Option C, a director who encourages work-life balance and leaves the office before 6 p.m. You can pause here if you need to.
The clear answer is option B. This leader's actions, the private jet, fundamentally contradict their public values of sustainability.
The core of hypocrisy.
Absolutely. They do not practice what they preach.
Okay, question 5. When an individual is down, what is the fundamental objective of an attempt to cheer them up? Option A, to provide them with objective, logical solutions. Option B, to intentionally shift their emotional state toward a more positive outlook. Or Option C, to allow them space to process their grief in isolation. Take a moment to pause if you like.
The answer is option B. The goal of trying to cheer them up is that active transition toward happiness. It's distinct from comforting, which is more about validation.
Great. Question 6. If a seasoned politician states they want no part of a new legislative proposal, what is their stance? Option A, they are currently reviewing the finer details. Option B, they refuse to be associated with the proposal and wish to distance themselves entirely. Or option C, they are actively seeking to amend specific clauses. Feel free to pause if you need to think.
The answer has to be option B. To want no part of something signifies an absolute refusal to be involved. It's far stronger than just reviewing or seeking amendments.
Total separation.
Total separation.
Okay, question 7. Which investment strategy is most characteristic of a firm operating strictly on a budget? Is it option A, allocating a massive unrestricted fund toward speculative projects? Option B, purchasing high-risk assets hoping for a big return? Or option C, selecting highly cost-effective resources due to a specific limit on available capital? Go ahead and pause if you'd like.
The correct answer is option C. Operating on a budget dictates strict cost effectiveness because of a specific limitation on capital.
It's all about the constraint.
Exactly. It contrasts sharply with the unrestricted funds in the other options.
Last one, question 8. What is the primary intent of an entrepreneur visiting a foreign city to see what it has to offer? Option A, to discover and evaluate potential business opportunities, attractions, or market gaps. Option B, to provide a pre-recorded lecture to local students. Or option C, to legally finalize the closure of an existing branch. Feel free to pause here one last time.
The answer is option A. The intent of seeing what a place has to offer is always exploratory. It's an evaluation for potential value, whether professional or recreational.
It confirms that strategic intent we discussed.
It does.
Well, we've reviewed 7 high-leverage advanced English phrases today, focusing on the nuances that make them stand out in professional conversations and high-stakes tests.
The key actionable suggestion, I think, is remembering that out of the blue adds that color of improbability. And that stepping on toes is specifically about crossing professional boundaries, not just irritating someone. Mastering these subtle differences is really essential to achieving that advanced fluency.
If you are looking for more opportunities to practice these phrases live and get AI feedback on your performance, don't miss out on our next Connect and Practice session at SpeakDuo.com. We invite you to continue challenging yourself to become a better communicator.
Keep learning and keep improving your work. We hope to see your material submitted for a future critique.